I heard a little bit of energy. How about a little more energy? How's the afternoon? All right. Everybody excited to talk a little bit about community and partnerships? Yeah, maybe? All right. Well, I'm super privileged to have Dr. Jimenez with us today from UPF. We're going to mix it up a little bit this afternoon and have a little chat and talk about some of the interesting things that they're doing as an example of how we can be learning from our broader academic community. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for having me over. That's fantastic.
So great to have you here. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to jump right on in.
Okay.
So UPF is here local in Barcelona and is ranked as one of the top 150 universities in the world according to Times Higher Education. Pretty exciting. Yeah. And #1 here in Spain. And you guys are doing a lot of innovation. What is driving that innovation in those rankings today?
Well, actually, you're right. This is quite a young university. It was created in 1990, so it has 29 years. It's a very recent university. And in the last years, it reached a very good position in the rankings, which is quite difficult, and we are very proud of that. But at the same time, we think we need to improve a bit more our work on innovation. That's true. It's a research-oriented institution, but very concerned by the quality of and the excellence of teaching and learning. So about innovation, we have several projects, which I would say they are macro projects in our university. And the main one is called Evolution, which is, I would say, the framework of all the other projects. And it's a project about an educational model. So it includes other small projects inside. We are working very, very strongly on that. This project at the same time thinks the way of teaching for the students of the future, and especially it is concerned about how these students are going to be in the future and which kind of professions, which kind of jobs they are going to do. It wants to be and also a suggestive educational model in the way that we are aware also our students probably don't know exactly which professions they are going to do in the future because they are not created yet. So we want to help them for that. And here the technologies, the learning platforms are really helpful on that. They have a key role on all that.
Yeah. How is thinking about that new sort of mode of education or approach to help address, these challenges that students are facing, because they're probably studying in careers that, like you said, they may not be able to predict where they're going to be in the future. So what role is blended learning or online learning or technology-based learning playing in some of that innovation?
Well, it plays a key role, as I said, because one of the main goals for us with this new educational model is to try to help the students to personalize their path of learning all these years. This is quite difficult in a country as Spain because everything is very controlled, I would say, by the quality agencies of the ministry, which is good on one hand, but at the same time, it allows just a small margin of innovation. So sometimes the platforms, the blended learning, the technologies, and this methodologies, including blended learning activities and practices, help to this personalization of the path, and they help to construct their own way to build up curriculum, a genuine and personal curriculum for students. We are a face-to-face institution, so we have to keep in mind that the platforms are just a complement to the face-to-face learning, but it is a very relevant component. It is absolutely relevant in terms of giving them the difference.
It's so interesting. Part of the reason why we wanted to have Dr. Jimenez with us today is because it's an extension of the lessons and the sharing of what we're all trying to face at our institutions. It's so interesting that you talk about personalized learning, because personalized learning has actually come up over the last 2 days, little did you know, in a number of conversations that I've been able to be a part of and a number of the sessions that you've all talked about. And I think just even learning a little bit about what each of us is doing in our institutions is just such a great example of the broader community that we're all a part of. Whether you're a Canvas customer or not, whether you're a Canvas partner or not, it's an opportunity to exchange these challenges and these exciting things that we're all doing together in a really meaningful way, so that we can learn, even as we're in our new local environments like this, how we're driving change in education. And for those of you, not familiar with our broader Canvas community, we have a pretty significant impact. And I encourage you to participate in it, once again, as a Canvas customer, as not a Canvas customer, as somebody looking to drive this kind of innovation or change in technology. I encourage you to engage. We have a pretty exciting online site that you can be a part of, and then continuing to have these conversations, continuing even into tonight. We're having an activity a little bit later tonight. You're welcome to come. Even as part of that, having these conversations about what does innovation mean to you? What are the kinds of things that you're doing to drive that innovation? And maybe even more broadly, how are you looking to shape the next generation digital learning environment, which is much of what you were talking about from a personalized, unique experience. So I'm curious, as you think about this innovation and how you're going to use technology, how are you tapping into the broader community, the academic community, local institutions around you, perhaps global institutions, to get ideas or approaches that you may want to leverage as you're thinking about innovation?
Well, actually, we are a university located in the center of Barcelona, so it is an urban university. We don't have this kind of big campuses. It is a middle-sized university, so it's not a very broad university, and it can't grow up because we don't have the space to do that. We want to keep middle-sized university, but we are very, very engaged with our community, with our close community of institutions and companies, etc. But at the same time, we really like to be international with that. So innovation is a way to do that. Innovation in the broader sense of the term, innovation in teaching and learning, but also innovation in producing contents, producing research. We conceive our community as a constructor of knowledge. So for us, it's really important to have the tools to get that. So how we spread out our idea of innovation in this broader community? Well, we have several strategies to do that. We have what we call the knowledge communities, which are groups to include, for example, companies interested in specific issues, NGOs, cultural institutions, etc., etc. Then we belong to a net of universities here in Catalonia, in Spain, and we also are part of other international institutions, net of institutions, I meant. Now we are part of a European program to construct a network of universities. We have constructed a network with several universities in Europe. It's called Utopia. This is another project from our university. And this is the way we do that. We try to bring our small piece in a broader map to add all these ways to provide innovation to our society.
So thinking about that work, do you have some advice for this audience. What would you suggest as they're all looking to leverage their local communities, their broader communities, one another, other academics in developing new partnerships to drive this kind of innovation? Do you have any advice for them on how to think about building those relationships, even maybe examples of how you were able to foster utopia?
Yeah, well, actually, I don't know if I'm the person to give advice to anyone, or the University Pompeu Fabra is the most authorized institution to do that, but we have some experience on that. So I think in terms of introducing this kind of innovations, we have to have in mind that we have two levels, the internal one and the external one. So in terms of the internal innovation, or the inclusion of some strategies for renewing the practices inside the universities, I would say something that worked really good for us was having a strategic plan in a flexible way to understand the strategic plan. Sometimes when we construct and conceive our strategic plans, they are very rigid, and everything is changing so fast that in 2 years, your strategic plan for 15 years doesn't work. So we conceived very flexible and very elastic, in a broader way, strategic plan. And we got the consensus of our community, which is something difficult, with academics. I'm an academic myself, and I know how difficult it is sometimes to convince them and to get their support and so on. So getting their consensus, it's basic. And for the external implication of the rest of the members, I think the networks is basic, but when you have the networks, you need something, you need the content. And sometimes you create the network and you forget you have to build something with the network. So bringing some specific projects, being really concrete, very thorough with the ideas you have in mind is a key to have sort of success in these relations with the rest of the partners of the network.
Yeah, that's great advice. So having flexible strategic plans, making sure you're thinking about building your internal community and the connections and networks there, and then being able to bring concrete activities to those external relationships. All fantastic advice, and I think of my own experience in leading educational technology teams and working on similar initiatives. It's so true. If you try to be too rigid, or you try to create something without having the content and context there, you can't necessarily get anywhere with that. It becomes relationships for relationship's sake. So great advice. So I don't want to take too much more of your time, Dr. Jimenez. We really appreciate this. And I just wanted to use this, as an example of how just even this little bit of conversation with one another and sharing within our communities, we can learn and grasp on ideas and maybe even find potential future partners to work with.